Okay, so we're back to this app. As we recall, we've done our component did mount get request. We've saved it in state. We've then passed down that state to to-do list. To-do list is mapping it out, creating a to-do component for each. We're displaying those here. And then to see each component that's being created, we came in here so we can see how we're displaying it. And we talked briefly about the next segment. We need to introduce a form component. And we're just going to build this one directly. We're not going to build it in app and then break it down. We're going to build it with the intention of passing props to it, just skipping that middle step. So, what would be a sensible thing to call a form that's for adding new to-dos? Cool. Let's call it to-do form because we may be able to reuse this form. Where else in this app where we maybe need a form later that takes the same inputs? Edit. So let's make a to-do form. Let's use this for adding to-dos, and later we can reuse it for editing to-dos as well because the inputs won't change. The handle submit and handle change will. But we can keep the form template for all of that. To-do form takes some props and returns a form. How many inputs should I add to this? Well, I'll get us started. We got one for, here's for the title. And I want to do price, description, and image URL to begin. So title, price, description, image URL. We can keep them all as strings. And a button. We're going to have the, we'll just say submit for now, or add to do. So we got title. We're going to finish the rest of these. So value is going to be something, and on change is going to be something. Just getting all these inputs with the props set up so we can start creating the data up above and pass it down correctly. And before we get too far, I better do this now. Should have done it initially, but you know. Come on, click, click. I really don't like this game, but the payoff is worth it. There we go. I did that again so it's easier to read on the page, and then I can just add a placeholder to each. This will be title, description, price, and image URL. I'm trying to remember if the API requires, I think the API requires a number for the price. So let's change this and type text to number. Okay, so our form is mostly set up. We'll just add the on submit listener here too, but we don't have any of the information for the form yet. We just built our template and made it available. So in the app.js, we can pull it in, import to do form from the components to do form. And where would it best fit inside of this return statement? Yeah, so do I want it above the to-do list or below the to-do list? Yeah, if it's below, the whole list will map out. And if there's 100 to-dos, they got to scroll through all of them to get to your form. So maybe above would be kinder, to-do form. And the whole list. So now we'll have, once this stops breaking, we'll have our form on top and then everything list out below it. But what props will our form need? A handle change prop. We'll just call it what it is. We haven't written these methods yet, but we will. So we're just kind of planning ahead here, thinking what will this form need to function? What do I need to build next? And this is very much, even though this is not testing, this is the way that you want to approach programming. Add the feature you want to have and then build the functionality. So you kind of have a reference point. Like, here's my goal now. I need to build these so this works. In addition, what else will the form need? Won't need the to-dos. Needs the inputs. Well, where are our inputs going to be kept track? So the form is going to receive the inputs, but where do we maintain these inputs and update them over time? State. So along with to-dos, I'm also going to keep track of a title, a description, price, and an image URL. And I'll actually start price off as a 0, just to, you could do an empty string and that'd be fine, but if they don't give you one, then you're going to be submitting a string and that's not good. Okay, so now we have our things in state we need to pass down. So title, this dot state dot title, description. I'm sure you could spread these in, but then the form would also receive the array of to-dos that it doesn't need, which isn't a big issue, but we're just going to longhand this one. Cool. Any other props, any other data that our form is going to need? Yeah, I think that's it. You know, pause for dramatic effect. Let's deconstruct those props so we can just use them. So handle change, handle submit, title, description, image URL, price from props. And now we just got to put the right word in the right brackets. So handle submit on the on submit. The value for title will be the title being passed down from state. On changes will all be handled. Conax change. Well, let's just do a couple of these at once. And I know I'm just building this, oops, without a whole lot of feedback from you. So if you have any questions on what we're doing, stop me. Description, Rose, price. I don't know why I stare at the board. I should stare at my screen. There we go. Image URL. And everything's back because our form now has no undefined variables. Well, almost. If I try to console log handle change or handle submit, what would I get? Undefined. Yeah, they're not defined. So that's the last step. We got to build the functionality for the form. So we'll add in a handle change that receives the event object and a handle submit that receives the event object. So we're just maintaining basic inputs here. So the handle change won't need to be too complex. But if I wanted to deconstruct the event target, what two parts of the event target am I concerned with for updates like this? Okay, so we'll need the value from where the event occurred, and what else will we need? The name, yeah. And this is just so I don't have to say e.target.name, e.target.value. Now I can set state and say update whatever input's name is to the input's value. Now this is actually essential if we add in previous state. If we needed to use previous state for some reason and then use the event object in our update, the event object can't make it that far. It disappears as soon as this function is called. But if we save it in a variable first, it's now scoped to the function and set state will remember it. So just be aware, if you're gonna use the event.target.name like this, it will not work if you're using previous state. It will forget what the event is as soon as it hits this function. So by convention now, I always just deconstruct the event targets so that it's never forgotten, even if I'm not using it. And then if you really wanted to shorten up the lines taken, we can just, what a pretty handle change. Does the handle change need anything else for a form? Yeah, right now we're not, so But yeah, you're thinking right. If we had a checkbox, we'd have to evaluate what value are we concerned with, the e.target.checked or the e.target.value. But yeah, we're just kind of hitting this straightforward. Panel submit will prevent default. And then we've got some steps to do. What do we need to do in this handle submit? What is our goal, our endpoint? Yeah, we need to post this to the API. But before we post it, yeah, we got to create the object to send to the API. And then we can post it. And then we can reset the inputs. And save new object in state. So it shows up as soon as I hit post, it'll just bam, show up. Okay, so create the new object. What should I call this new object? New to-do. That makes sense. It's a new to-do. What keys will this to-do have? It has to be these exact keys. Title, price, description. How do we know we have to use these words? Why can't it be image instead of image URL? Yeah, the API is only going to let you save this object if it has these values. And we want that in a database. We don't want our database to be able to save anything. We tell it exactly, hey, when they send you an object, it must match this shape, or else reject it. Don't let us save it. Well, where are we going to grab all these values from when they submit? Yeah, the form. But where is the form? When they're typing in the form, where is it saving it? State. Yeah, so they're typing, then they click submit. State is updated now, so we can grab all their values. And sure, we're not accounting right now. What if they left price empty? That could be a problem, but we're not going to worry about it. We're going to fill in our inputs and just make it work one thing at a time. And this .state.image URL. Okay, we have our new object. Now we're ready to send it to the database. What is the method I'm going to use for that? Axios.post. Anyone else think Axios sounds like a Harry Potter spell? That's just me. Okay, URL, same URL. But it's a post, not a get. Okay, so I'm telling it where to post to, but how do I tell it what to post? Yeah, the post request takes 2 arguments. Where to go, and what am I sending to have added to the database? Then it comes back with one of 2 eventualities. Error, or everything went great. And we get our response. Now, just like the GET request, what did I say to do as soon as you get this request set up? Before I go ahead and try to start saving stuff and manipulating state, what should I do in my .then very first? And this is more for testing purposes. I want to make sure this is working. Yeah, let's console log response and make sure it works before we try to add another 5 or 6 lines of code that's just going to make it more complex when it's not working. Let's see if it works first. We're console logging. Hey, look at that. I even get text shadow on my form. Does it work? Oh, I don't like that, but okay. Maybe. Price is 300. And we'll grab this is an image. Add to do. Okay, our response shows up, line 53, line 53. Yep, that's what we're looking at. Open it up, response.data. And what does this look like? It looks like success. Because here's my data, here's the stuff I sent, maybe, and it came back with an ID. And it came back with a session and completed. So that it hit the database saved it, added the essential parts to it, and sent it back. It says, hey, here's the new piece of data that you can now add to the things the user sees. So response.data, it's the same thing when it came back. So we know this works, and if I refresh, cool, it is adding it. But how do I have this? I don't want to refresh the page. What triggers React to say to re-render the page? Yes, that's how we do it in vanilla land. But we're in React land. It does a lot for us. So what method in React updates the page? What calls render? No. Well, yes, but something in handle change. Set state. When we update state, React reacts. Says, cool, new data, let's make it show up. So as long as we save state correctly, the form will reset and the new to-do will magically show up. All we have to do is set state. React will do the rest. So instead of console logging response, we know we need response.data is the new to-do. So I'll say this dot set state, and I want to update my to-dos to have that, but not erase the old ones. So what does this set state need? It needs to know about the previous items. Yep, so previous state, that arrow, and then add another set of parentheses. So now I can say to-dos, and how do I say be what you were before and also add the following object? Spread in what? Prev state? What is prev state? Prev state is this. Yeah, we say spread in just that property. Give me everything from prev state dot to-dos, and then add on the new object. But how do we know what is what currently has the new object? How do I reference it? So new to do doesn't have the ID yet, it doesn't have the version, doesn't have all that. So where do I actually get the data that's been saved? Remember that response.data that had our new object? That is our new object. This is the one it's this, but once it's been saved in the database, it comes back and we can add it with all strings attached. We want to make sure whatever's on the page has an ID, or else it'll be listed out and then the delete button won't work because you need the ID to delete something. So if it's easier to read, you can always do this. Const new to do from database is the response.data, and then say give me everything from previous state and also add in the new to do from the database. But it's the same as just saying res.data because they're the same object.
Because you just get like, when you do a post, you get like the same thing.
That's what this API does.
Right.
When you build your own, you get to decide what it does.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
Need to return my laptop.
Cool.
Where is it?
They're all at lunch right now. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a recording.
No, you get home.
Did I come chat with you in a minute? Okay. Cool. So come back and we're saying give us everything and then the new. Is this easier to read if we pull it out of response.data first so we know what we're referencing? Right, we send this object with just these keys, but it comes back in response with everything else. So we're just adding it to the list. Is that enough for React to know what we mean for it to do? Let's see. Title, Harry, description, Potter, price, 1,000. Image, we need some new images. Wonder if Unsplash has anything Harry Potter related. Oh, no way. Okay. Pretty stoked about it. Image URL, paste. Ah, it shows up immediately. I didn't have to wipe out the page or anything. It just knows. So yeah, that is the post request. It is building a form and then building a very strong handle submit. It builds the object, sends it to the database, and once it comes back, updates state. But what are we not updating? Ah, my form still has everything. So do I need to set state again right here and erase them all? Where would I erase them? Or where would it? Yeah, but the form is tied to these. So if I set these back to empty, the form will go back to empty. So I want to do it right here. Why can't I just do it along with this one? I'm saving the to-dos. Can I also reset stuff at the same time? Sure. description. So that's, instead of setting state twice, if you're ever setting state twice in a function, you might be doing it wrong. Think about, can I get out everything done at once? I want React to have to render as few times as possible. It's really good at doing it, and you won't see much of a lag with these smaller apps, but it's a good practice to live by. If I can update everything at once, update it all at once. If you need to perform a bunch of functions before you get your updates, and there's multiple things, do all those functions first, and then update once. So now it's going to save the new to-do and also clear the form. Yeah. 0. You have a point there. I'll give you that. Cool. And at this point, you're probably going to have a lot more to-dos on your screen because you've been testing it a lot more. I know I probably had like around 50 when I first built it. Like, this is getting enormous. So what is the next logical thing to build into my app? The ability to delete. Because I'd like to just be able to click this one that doesn't have an image versus going to Postman and manually doing it. Yes, so now we're on the delete. And the post request didn't take a whole lot, so I'm just going to put post and delete in the same video. Might as well. It'll be like a half hour. But now we have our post request done. Feels good. Maybe a little styling would be in order too for a form. I don't like it up here, but that would just be grabbing this div, putting some style on it. All right, well, first and foremost with the delete request, what do I need to implement on every to-do? Something I can click on. Preferably something that says the word delete. If we put it on the whole div and accidentally click on it, we don't want it to disappear. That would be unfortunate. So which component do I add the delete button to? To-do. This represents every single individual one that we see. So if I add something here, every single item's going to get it. So button delete. Please work. Hey, look, it worked. And now it's about time to change that text stuff because, oh my. Where's it going to go? Cornflower blue. All that. Nope. Chocolate. Never used chocolate before. I don't like the look, but we're going to work with it because this is not a lesson on CSS colors. And it actually fits quite well with this color scheme, if I do say so myself. Okay, so we have our delete button. Yay. This is really tricky though. How does this delete button know to delete this to do and leave the rest alone? By ID. Well then, where would I write the method handle delete? Would it be an app, to-do list, or to-do? That is always the first inclination. Well, this needs to know about itself, so just like the delete button, I'm going to put the method in there. But no, we'd keep it an app. Why would we need to keep it an app? Think about what delete is doing. It's getting rid of an item in the array. Do we want the user to see it disappear immediately? If so, as soon as the delete's done, we have to set state. Can I set state in to-do to affect my app.js state? No, so the method needs to be in here so that when it's done deleting, I can update this array and the user can see that change happen quickly. So handle change, handle submit. Let's add another. Handle delete is a method of some sort that does some magic. Now, what I would do very first is before I do anything, I'm just going to console log it's working. And I would like to be able to click the delete button and see this console log work, regardless of which one I click on. So how do I get this tied to this? Props. So where am I passing it down to first? No. To-do list, yeah, because that's eventually where the to-dos will end up. So I'm going to pass the handle delete down to my to-do list. But is my to-do list going to use it? No, it's going to catch it and pass it forward. So now to-do list receives it. as props.handleDelete. Now, what do I need to pass it down to? What component actually needs this method? To do. I need all of them to have access to this method. So every single one that's being mapped out will receive it. And now this is getting large, so time for the tab game. Do what I tell you to. Okay. Yeah, it's not a part of the to-do. It's a different prop. Yeah. I'm saying here's your title, description, price, image completed. Here's your method, and here's your key. But now every single to-do that's being mapped out has a reference to the method, but how many versions of that method exist in memory? Is there, if I have 5 to-dos, is there 5 different handle deletes? It would if I wrote it in here. It'd make a new handle delete function for every to-do. But if I wrote an app, it's still only, this only exists once. We're passing a reference to this method to every to-do. So each one can use it, but it only exists in this one place. So now that to-do receives it, I can add it to the destructured list. I can say, hey, you're also receiving something called handle delete from above, and we'd like you to call it on your delete button. So we pass it down 2 levels just to see, does the button trigger the method up above? And once it does, let's focus on the function. So we'll click, it's working, cool. Each one has access to that method. The method's doing the same thing right now because it only exists once. So kind of making the puzzle worse, how do I make this thing dynamically work? It needs to only delete the one that I'm asking for. Now you said the right piece of data, ID, but how do I get the ID from here to here? Props can't go up. Functions work that way, cool. So the function can receive an ID as long as when I call it, wherever I call it, I pass in the ID. So in to-do, I already have access to the to-do's ID, just like I have access to its own title. How do I pass ID to handle delete? Yeah, what are these parentheses doing right now? Well, it is a method, so I should be able to call it and give it the ID so it receives it up here. But notice, let me do this. I'm going to console log the ID. I'm going to look at my console, and there's all my IDs. They're already there. Why has every, I mean, the delete button doesn't even work anymore. Parentheses call a function immediately. They don't wait for your click. Now, this is really dangerous to introduce if you've already written your axios.delete request, because just when I refresh the page, it would have wiped out my entire database. So that's why I'm incrementally adding these features, making sure they work before I actually build in the Axios request that's going to do the magic. So wait for my click. That's the point of this. Wait for it. Now, if handle delete needed the event object, is it currently receiving it from the onClick? Ooh. It doesn't, every event listener gives the function an event object, but is handle delete receiving that? What's receiving it? This function is now receiving the event object because this is the one that's being called on click. So if I actually needed the event object in this method, I'd have to state it here and then pass it along. Fortunately, I don't need it in this case. Just be aware. If you're using this anonymous function method and you need the event object, you gotta state it here and pass it because this is no longer the method being called on click. This is, and this happens just to be calling that after. Ooh, woof. So with that in mind now, we have the ID being passed up. They're not being listed out. We can really test it. Is the ID making it? When I click a delete versus another delete, we should see 2 different strings show up. So ID number 1 ends in 793FO, CA6E3, so they do know about themselves. Each delete button is tied to their own ID. Almost like magic. So I handed the method down, and the method's handing the ID up. The app will receive it. And now that I know I'm getting the ID, what's my request? axios.delete to our URL. Oh, where's our URL? There's our URL. But is the URL endpoint the same for delete as it is for post and a get? What do I need to add to it? Cool. Do I do it after the /? Do I remove this / and put it there? Yeah, it's a new endpoint. We have to say /. I'm going to use template literals so that this ID is easily just placed in like that. It receives it and immediately sends the request to the one it received. Then response comes back with something, or .catch comes back with something. Do you remember what the delete request sends back on this API? Might as well test it. Let's do what I say we should do. Let's console log res and just make sure. So this, if it works, it won't disappear because we're not setting state, but we should still see our response, and when we refresh the page, it should disappear. So let's delete this one. Bam. Okay, we got our response. .data. Oh, it just sends you a message. Successfully deleted record. Huh. So if I refresh, it's gone. Cool. But I don't want to refresh. But it's not sending me something to add to the array. It's telling me, hey, the thing you told me to delete is gone. So how would I set state to say, go through my to-dos, but only give me back the to-dos that weren't just deleted? What's a higher order array method that gives you, you give it an array, it gives you a smaller array? Reduce could work. Filter. Filter. Yeah, we want to filter. When it comes back, we'll say, hey, let's filter through our to-dos and find the one that was deleted and strip it out. So the user sees it disappear immediately. Can you use higher order array methods inside of a set state? Yes. Yes, you can. So we're going to need previous state. Will we need previous state? We won't need previous state. We won't need. Right. Well, that's the thing. Right now, it will only refresh once I manually refresh the page because that deleted one is stuck. It's still sitting in here. Even though the database is updated, our front end is not. So a lot of this back-end, front-end communication is syncing them up. If the back-end data changes, the front-end display needs to change to match that data. So we're going to set state. We're going to update to-dos. But to-dos needs to be the array without that item in it. So I'll say, you know what, for the sake of being good about it, we are going to use prev state. Technically, you could get away with it without it, but prev state's always best if you're going to refer to itself. So we want to update to-dos, and we want it to be prev state.todos. But that's the array as it was. That would keep nothing different. So what we'd actually like to do is filter. Because what does filter return? It'll return a new array, yeah. So this will occur, it'll return the new array, and then set state will save it, order of operations. Because this is happening inside, it's going to evaluate and then save the to-dos at whatever this returns. So for each to-do, we only want the to-dos that weren't deleted. What piece of data in handle delete do we have that lets us know which one was deleted? Yeah, we passed this ID in, didn't we? Even though that to-do doesn't exist on the back end anymore, it's still up here. It's still one of these to-dos, and we only want the ones that don't have this ID. So only return the to-do whose ID is not equal to the ID we just deleted. And it filters it down, saves the new array. Now the user gets to see this. Bam. It's gone. The state update occurred. Is this the only way to do this? Sure. No, probably not. You could use a for loop before your set state and not do it in line like this. But all the cool kids are doing it, so I'm going to do it. I'll add a note here. Filter through previous to-dos and only return the to-dos that do not have the ID that was just deleted from the database. Since we passed it as an argument, even though we used it here, we can use it again here for E. Nice. Yes, so I'm doing kind of a shorthand because of the implicit return here. But what we're really asking is if the current to-do ID we're on is not equal to the ID we filtered, then we want to return that to-do. We only want the ones that don't match that ID. But with ES6 syntax and the implicit return, we can shorten that into just, if the to-do ID is not equal to that, great, return it. Return the whole to-do. With this. Oh yeah, the because yeah, let's go to our React Dev Tools and look at our state. We got 3 to-dos in there. We'll click this one. It filtered it out. Give us 2 more, like immediately. The other option is we could do an if-else statement before here to loop through, do like a for loop through our array, find the one, and then create the new array, and then just save it. But this is just, I would try to make this not look so scary by using it a few times, because it's extremely efficient. This will evaluate, it'll return a new array, and that new array will be saved in state with 1 item less than it had before. That is the delete. And then if you wanted to, you could remove the word delete, make it an X, put it in the right corner, and that looks kind of cool. Or just keep it as a button. Now, doing all this today in hopes that you practice it a little bit over the weekend, I would strive to get at least this functionality working. And I will give out the notes. And I haven't seen a whole lot of like copy paste, but there's been a couple errors I've run into where it's like, it's because that's my code and you're using a different API. So just don't do that. Like, I think you're all great. Just don't do that. Because you're going to want to know how to do this for your project. You want to kind of have no strings attached. You can just jump in. But this is a lot to consume. And what's happening to our app.js component right now? We've created a monster. It's getting huge. And as we add in more functionality, app would get larger and larger. And why are we having to put this all in app again? So our whole app can have it if it needs it. Yeah, we can pass props as far as we need. But if we're using our imagination, uno momento, going Spanish today. Monday, we're going to try to make this easier to handle by adding in some complexity. It sounds like an oxymoron, but it's true. Because as our app grows, if we had component, you know, we have one here and here, and these branch out as well. These might branch out as well. You know, like things will get very complex very quickly as an app grows. Just like the RPG, you'll lose track of where you were. It'll be hard to read your code. Everywhere a branch occurs here, this is a component. All of these are components. And if the app was still the single source of truth as far as state is concerned, if this component needed it, how many times would we be passing props if this one needed it? And it was originating an app. We pass, we pass, we pass. So 3, that's not too bad. But what if, you know, down over here, this also needs it. And we're also passing it and passing it and passing it and passing it. It gets really bad eventually. More than 4 or 5 levels can start getting confusing. So on Monday, we're gonna go over context. It's built into React, and it's a way to say, hey, let me make a class component over here that maintains state. And if this component needs it, we will connect these two. And if this component needs it, we'll connect these. And if this one needs it, we'll connect it. So it's another way of passing props, but it's more like a portal. We're warping it to where it needs to be versus passing it manually one step at a time. Now, context is known as like state management. Redux does a similar thing. That's for the same purpose. It's not required for this first project, but I would still intend on implementing it. We'll go over it next week. So even if you get started and you put everything in app, I'll show you how to say, hey, here's all that complexity we have sitting in app. We will literally take this app that we just made and we'll move things like handle delete and our to-dos, we'll move them to a global state in context. We'll keep this stuff local because it's just concerning the form, nothing else needs it. But this stuff, we will take this app and we'll make a context so that we can provide it to wherever needs. This is like the, we can play with colors here. Oh, come on, give me a yellow. This is like the sun from Teletubbies shining down on your application. That was a weird analogy. But right now, totally fine. If your app component grows into a 200-line behemoth, great. We'll break it up later.